I am Natasha, Chief Exec and co-founder of a startup, Low Carbon Materials. And Low Carbon Materials is a climate tech startup focusing on combating climate change, specifically through material innovation. So we concentrate on the challenges associated with materials, such as the emissions associated with individual materials, but also the lack of circularity that we currently find with the materials we use. And thank you, Meg, for the introduction and making sure that you mentioned that we're in one of the most sustainable buildings in London, because it's amazing to be able to speak to you in such an incredible building. So we started our journey in the built environment. And that's for good reason, because buildings mean a lot to people, whether it's the homes you live in, whether it's the offices that you work in. But not many people think about the impact that these types of materials and buildings have on the planet. So our startup story is quite pragmatic. And myself and my two co-founders are material scientists, or I should probably say were, all those years ago, 4 years ago. And as scientists, and as you would probably expect, we went straight to the data to try and understand how we could make our mark and positively impact the planet. So we did an online search, and we searched what is the biggest threat facing humanity. And 4 years ago, climate change, climate change, climate change. So being the pragmatic scientists we were, well, clearly that's where we want to be, and that's what we want to start to solve. And we dug into that a little bit deeper as materials scientists. What materials are contributing to climate change? And concrete came up. So that's where we started. As you can see from the pictures, I've included a road. We are also excited to announce that we're in the asphalt market as well now. So a really tiny team, a climate tech startup tackling some of the world's biggest challenges. So specifically, why concrete and asphalt? As I mentioned, they are significant contributors of greenhouse gas emissions. So concrete alone is responsible for about 8% of global CO2 emissions, and they are everywhere. The reliance that we have on concrete and asphalt for our roads, strategic road networks, whether you cycle, drive, is huge. But they're going nowhere, and they are absolutely essential building materials. That's why innovation is absolutely key in this sector. Gone are the days where we can just build and have processes that we've always had. We really need to rethink the way that we use materials. So this is a hierarchy of reducing carbon emissions within the built environment. So firstly, do we need to build at all? Build nothing is always, when you're thinking about carbon, the best option. If you conclude, yes, we absolutely do need to build, then can we build less? After build less, can we build clever? Build efficiently and reduce waste. So there's lots of materials during the building process that get thrown away and are deemed valueless that actually are not valueless. So can we change processes around waste? So the work that we do sits in the build clever and build more efficiently categories. So we have two innovations at the moment, and our journey started with Osto and concrete. So Osto is a carbon negative aggregate, so it's essentially a gravel-like material that can be used in concrete as traditional aggregates are used in concrete. And we have recently announced Akla, which is a similar gravel-like material, but has been developed to decarbonize asphalt, which is the material that makes up our road systems. And we just finished a really, really exciting project in County Durham, which is a net zero asphalt layer on one of the major roads that run through the city. And we worked really closely with Durham County Council as the client to help them meet some of their carbon targets. And on the back of this project, we're being contacted by other local authorities to talk about ways that perhaps they could work with us and startups in general to try and reach their carbon targets and reduce their emissions. So ACLA is carbon negative. It's a drop-in solution. You need quite low volumes in a traditional mix to make it net zero. It's a stackable carbon benefit. It was very important to us that we could go alongside other innovations, not just people use the aggregate and that's it, job done. And in fact, in the project on the previous slide, it was exciting because we used every single innovation in asphalt that we possibly can, from really pushing the amount of other waste road in the new road, and using lots of other waste products as well. There's a high application potential with a material like this, and the benefit is you can really tackle the problem at its core rather than look to buy offsets after the project is completed. And with everything we do as a startup, especially in the built environment, we know that we can't reinvent the wheel. We know that it's a traditional industry, and we know that we need quick change. So the drop-in part of the solution is really important in such a traditional industry. So we reduce carbon emissions two main ways. Firstly, through permanent carbon removal. So we use carbon sequestration, which is the capture and permanent storage of CO2. And we are increasing this more and more as part of one of our R&D programs. And we also have some avoidance. So some of the materials that we use are waste materials that would otherwise be incinerated or burnt. So they're deemed valueless currently. Although burning our waste generates some energy, on the whole, it's quite a bad process and releases vast amounts of CO2 emissions. So we completely avoid this. And we are really proud to be supported by lots of organisations. And I would specifically like to call out the Earthshot Prize, which is one of the most prestigious environmental awards on the planet, founded by His Royal Highness Prince William. And it's an honour to be amongst the most urgent, optimistic change makers on the planet. And now we have the pleasure to continue that journey with the Earthshot Prize. It's opened probably more doors for us than we could ever imagined as a startup. So we have many things. We have a market-ready decarbonisation solution. We have relationships with the supply chain. We have state-of-the-art facilities. But in construction and the built environment, everyone rushes to be second. So we want to work with pioneers and change makers, whether that's people who have projects, whether that's people that want to push the dial and be the first movers on materials like this. So we're looking for project partners and scale-up partners. And this is not just something that's isolated to us as a startup. I speak on behalf of all startups here, where we all have a responsibility to support companies, smaller companies, really pushing the boundaries of innovation. And OSTO and ACLA for LCM is just the start. We will go back to the drawing board time and time again to really understand where we can innovate next. If you can touch it, that's what we do. And if it reduces carbon emissions from incumbent processes or materials, that's what we do. So the ultimate goal for us is to be a world leader in low carbon and environmentally friendly materials. Thank you.